Room, the only way to start your day.
You were in the hot seat as the registrar of political parties.
Sure.
Today, you wear the hat of commissioner of the IEBC.
Yes.
Some of these conversations will bleed into each other with what you did before and what you do now, because naturally they just do. We'll get into that proper today. Yeah. But first of all, let's welcome you with today's proverb. We'd love to get your interpretation.
So, proverb today comes from Sierra Leone, a country whose slaves from UK ended up in Sierra Leone. But you look at the country and it's a beautiful country rich in resources. So you talk about the diamonds in the country. A pretty sad part in the past were the blood diamonds of Sierra Leone and what that did. But today, reforms that they put in place continues to spur the economy of the country. They also have titanium. They have gold. They're also fishermen. You know, and all this just goes to help the country move forward. But from this country, we also have a proverb. If you close your eyes to facts, you will learn through accidents. If you close your eyes to facts, you will learn through accidents. How would you interpret that?
If you ignore what is actual and what is obvious, then definitely you're going to get into a lot of trouble, because and like putting it into the electoral context, if Kenyans ignore voter registration and they ignore peaceful elections, it will definitely get into trouble. And I speak to the youth. The youth must not ignore voter registration. It's a fact that credible elections start with a credible voter register. And that means that for you to participate in election, you start by the fact that you must be a registered voter. So that's a fact. If you ignore that fact, what will happen is that you shall not vote, and then you shall not elect leaders of your choice. And then later, you start complaining that we don't have the right leaders.
You know, they say another proverb, bad leaders are elected by good citizens who don't vote.
Who don't vote.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, you don't live on Mars, and you're here, and you can hear the things that Kenyans say, and you can hear what the call is. That many have said that in the upcoming election, that there will be an unprecedented number of people who will then express their right of sovereignty under the Constitution and make the decision through their ballot.
Yeah.
It's said over and over again, but like you say, what proves that then is the number of people that you have registered, because the same Constitution then demands that in order to make this decision at the ballot, then you must register as a voter. IEBC has a target of 6.8 million new voters, in addition to what is already there.
Yes.
And so far, according to the chair, just a few weeks ago, the number of registered voters so far is 90,020.
Yes.
Is that a good place to be at right now?
It's not a good place to be, especially looking at the target. Of course, maybe since then we have increased maybe 20,000 or so to be around 110. But that is not a good place to be, especially looking at the target of 6.38. Yeah, the voters that we are targeting. So if we have registered slightly over 100, I don't think we are doing well as a country.
It's not even a tenth.
Yeah, it's not even a tenth. Yeah, and that's why it's very important that Kenyans come out and register, because we know those 6.8 are out there. Yeah, and even more, because looking at our projection, we were projecting using the number of people who we suspect or believe that have national IDs, because it's the document, part of the documentation, what you need for you to register. Of course, you can also register with your passport, but looking at the baseline, majority of Kenyans use national IDs. So we are looking at how many Kenyans are projected to have national IDs, but eligibility, how many for eligibility purposes. But people who really are of the age of majority and probably who are in the process of acquiring the national ID are more than the 6.8 we are mentioning. Yeah, so generally speaking, they could be more Kenyans out there. So when we say that we have registered 100,000 plus, it means we are really on the very lower side of what we aim to achieve.
As a commission, where you sit, so there is clearly a fact that Kenyans are not showing up to register. We spoke to some who say how it has been planned where registration is also difficult because many say access to IEBC registration points is a problem. Is that a concern for the commission?
It is a concern, and probably to put it in perspective, we have been telling Kenyans this is what we call continuous voter registration, which is open throughout the period, except where there are by-elections. For example, now we have by-elections areas. That is when the register is closed for those particular time, or during the general election, or when the legal timelines have been set up. For example, continuous voter registration happened all the way up to 6 months before the general election. That one happened at our offices, at 290 constituency offices. But then, with availability of funds, is what we call enhanced continuous voter registration, which Kenyans generally call it mass voter registration. Those are periodic registration periods that we really take the registration services closer to the people by deploying more registration staff, by deploying more registration gadgets, all the way to the ward level and polling station level. And in the meantime, we are doing continuous voter registration that is in the office level, in the 290 constituency. So, but in a short while, and especially after we finish with the by-elections, we shall be rolling out a mass voter registration, maybe for a month or two, where we now go to the people in the polling station level. We meet you in your market. We meet you in the institutions of learning. We meet you everywhere. We meet you at your shop. We will come at your polling station where you want to register and all that. We shall come looking for you. But that's also, the length of that depends on availability of funds. That's why when the registration is open, even now at a continuous voter registration level at the offices, Kenyans should take advantage of that and come out and register. Before we come now to rule out that, which will happen soon, but it cannot be forever. That can only be periodic, depending on the availability of fund. Probably the maximum could be 2 months. But Kenyans need to take advantage that voter registration services are offered throughout the year, throughout the periods up to 6 months before the general election. So, and I want to say, basically, if you realize the importance of registering as a voter and voting as a Kenyan, that voting make the choices about your country and who leads your country, and you are participating in building your country and building democracy of your country, then you can spare a few minutes. I know Kenyans move from one center to another. Indeed, we are saying that voter registration is next to your town, because majority of these 290 constituencies are actually next to your town. So as you go through your business, you can just pass through the voter registration, because I don't think Kenyans, you can finish a whole year, you have not gone to your local market. And that's where our offices are. But we take cognizance that there are constituencies and areas where it is very vast. The vast areas, the constituency offices is very far, because the nature of that particular area is that there's a lot of, it's quite vast. For example, when you are talking about those ASO areas, the north frontier, including Turkana, Marsabit, coming to northeastern Wajir, Madeira and all that. We take cognizance that some of these have long distances, and that's why we are saying sooner or later we then shall take those services to where they are. When we do that, we then follow to where the pastoralists are trying to capture them and to really follow them for purposes of registration. So basically speaking, it's a call for any Kenyan who is not registered as a voter to feel really patriotic enough to register as a voter in preparation for voting.
Why do you think Kenyans are not registering? Because that's the truth. They're not registering.
They are not.
If the call is for 6.8 million people and 3 months now?
Yeah,
into the
3 months.
registration,
Yeah.
3 months into the registration drive, only 100,000 people have registered. So Kenyans are not registering to vote.
Yes.
Why do you really think they're not?
One of it is and I'll call it a bad culture of Kenyans of last minute. Kenyans have this culture of if you tell them the deadline is tomorrow, now you shall see them queuing and coming out and saying IEBC is unfair. It's now we really want them even to extend time. We have experienced that before. And that is the culture we say we actually need to eliminate, so that we take advantage when there's no queues, there are no long lines that you have to wait. I think that one is a contribution. Kenyans have this culture of last minute and wanting to compete with time until when it's the last minute. I know there are many Kenyans who are passing through the registration. They see that is IEBC office and they say, there's still time. So after some time, I'll come and register. That is one. Two, of course, we take cognizance of the fact that there are people who really are chasing their ID cards at the moment, and as young people, they are getting the ID. They are waiting for ID cards, and that's why our collaboration with Kenya National Registration Bureau, where citizens are registered, is very critical, because we need as many Kenyans to have ID numbers as possible. The other one, which we acknowledge as the Electoral Commission, especially for those ASO areas, those areas that are the registration centers are very far. The constituency is so big, so there are people who are far flung. Then some of them may not have even the money to travel to the constituency, because maybe it take a day or two to travel to the constituency office, and those are the ones we are targeting most when we come to now and what we are calling the enhanced voter registration, continuous voter registration. The enhanced meaning taking the services now to the people.
Okay.
And to the polling station level.
You seem to be focusing on that quite some. Give us a ballpark, because if you're focusing quite some on that, and to say that you actually take it to the doorstep of where these folks may be, or move along with them if they're pastoralist communities, what kind of numbers are you looking to get from these areas if you're going to focus a lot of attention on that?
No, you see, we are focusing for every Kenyan, but we only acknowledge that there are unique challenges in those ASO areas where they are really the services. New services, every Kenyan has a right to access services, including voter registration services. It's not to say that we are ignoring all the other areas where there are smaller constituencies, more population and all that, but we want to give access to every Kenyan to the services. Access to services is a right for every Kenyan.
What is the infrastructure of the system like? And I'm going to ask that question with a rider. Is that folks went 2 weeks ago to the voter registration area in Ngong. They were told are the agents at the registration center, these are contracted by IEBC, those who are actually registering, or are they IEBC employees?
Currently, we are using IEBC employees.
Okay.
IEBC employees.
All right. So in Gongtown, they went and they were told the system was down. They went to register. A group of people went to register. They were told the system was down. They were told to leave their numbers and that they would be notified. That was 2 weeks ago. They've not been notified to date. Nobody has called them. They've not been able to register. So then one must wonder, if the system is down, how long does it take for it to come back up? And if they were going to be called back, how long does that take? Could this be one of the problems? And how would you solve that?
Now, maybe that need more in-depth, because I know our system, you can also register offline. You may not wait for the system to be there. Maybe that's an officer who probably, either for some reason, gave an excuse, because the system we have, you can also register offline and to upload the data.
Do they know this?
The data, yes, they are trained officers. That's why I'm saying we need to go into the depth of that. What could have been the problem? Yeah, if some officers, and probably I may want to get the details of that, then we are able to connect with that, because our system also, you can register offline and then later upload the data accordingly. What you cannot do offline is currently is the if you want to transfer your vote, because that one you have to really get into the system so that we are able to bring up your data and see where you are transferring from this level to this other one. But as far as registration is concerned, it's possible you register and then that data will be uploaded later. We have given those options as part of our registration. So that's a unique case. It's probably one with kind, which we may want to get. Probably the challenge was different. Yeah, maybe power was not there, because if you don't have power, then even you cannot.
But surely, if there was no power, they would have said, "There's no power right now. Maybe we can come back later." But in this case, they said, "We will get in touch with you."
Yeah,
this may be the message that is sent to a number of people who come to registration centers, and for one reason or another, if the system is unable to capture them at that moment, have been told that they would get back in touch with them, and that doesn't happen. It would then increase the apathy, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, if that happens, which I'm saying we really need to get into the depth of it. And Kenyans we have an offline, we have a customer service system where Kenyans, even from as far as where they can be, they can also get in touch with us so that we are able to isolate and understand what the problem could be.
Okay.
I have a question. When it comes to registration exercise, so I'll do a comparison. Today, if I want to sign up for an account to a bank, I can do that online. What do I need? I need to go to the bank's portal, key in my details, take a photo of my ID, front and back, and upload it into the system, and there you go. I have my bank account. Later, if I walk into any bank account anywhere across the country, they would take my fingerprints, my biometrics, and key it in. IEBC says that in terms of funding, it's a problem. But going digital could be the solution. Has IEBC sought to go digital in terms of registration, where any Kenyan from across the country, especially the people you're targeting, who are the young people, where do they spend most of their time? On their phones. Isn't it about time that IEBC looked at that as a solution, where you can register yourself in the portal, take a photo of your ID, because that is needed, and later they can come to confirm to your offices that the number that you have received, because you can get that registration number on your phone through a USSD or an SMS, go confirm that Dennis Aseto is registered as a citizen to vote in a specific county that he feels he wants to. Because I would be in Nairobi, but I want to vote in Mombasa, because at the time during elections, I'm in Mombasa. But I could register from Nairobi as a Mombasa voter in Nairobi. Why isn't IEBC thinking of such innovative means of dealing with the pressure of having personnel and the pressure of having systems going down? Is that an option?
One, we start by the current situation. In every constituency, we have 2 kits. One kit is localized to that constituency, that only voters from that constituency can register. The second kit is open to the whole country, that if you go today to any IBC office, it doesn't matter from which county or constituency you are coming from, you can be registered. Because there's an open kit that registers any Kenyan from any Kenyan from any part of the country. Having said that, that means accessibility. Even if you are coming from Mombasa, in Nairobi, you just enter any of the IEBC constituency offices, and including our customer care there at the headquarters, you really get registration. But in terms of digital registration, we are actually processing and coming up with what we are calling a pre-registration module, where you capture your data, just the way you are saying. You capture your data. Indeed, you are going to scan your ID. At the back of the ID here, there's usually some coding there. RMZ that is there. Then you just whatever, and you populate your data into the system. After that, you register, you fill in whatever may be remaining, and you then submit. Then, when you submit, but this is a system that we have not started using. It's good to say that we are in the process of making, and I know by the time it goes to that to roll out of the ECVR, the enhanced voter registration, we shall have the system. So then after that, when you submit, then you book a date with the registration officer. Why are you booking a date? Because you cannot complete the registration because you must capture your biometrics. So when you go to the registration center, you're only going to capture the biometrics. That make it simple. It's like we want to come up with a system like what DCI does. That when you go to DCI, you fill in the form on eCitizen, you do everything. You only go to capture your fingerprints. That is the same method we want to use in the pre-registration. That, of course, will make it easier for Kenyans to register and also minimize the length that you take. You go just there to confirm and capture your data, and you book up a specific date according to your convenience. So we are coming up with that system. It's only that, of course, it takes some time because it's something I thought it also takes some money for you to finish making such a system. But I know sooner or later we are going to roll out that pre-registration module where you register in advance before you go for your biometric data capturing. Yeah, so it's something that innovatively we have our internal developers, very, very talented young people who are working on it, and our Directorate of ICT. Yeah, so it's something that we are considering. But meanwhile, it is important for Kenyan to know you can register in any of IEBC offices. It doesn't matter where you are coming from. The registration services are accessible from any point, provided it's an IEBC office.
What kind of mapping have you done for those locations for registration around the country? I mean, we can look at Nairobi, we can look at Kakamega, we can look at Kwale. How mapped out has this been done that within a certain radius you would have a number of IEBC registration offices? Or are there like 3 in Nairobi, for example? How has that been done?
Now we have constituencies. As currently the situation we are registering at IEBC offices, and every constituency has an IEBC office. For example, Nairobi have 17 of them. 17 constituencies, therefore we have 17 offices. Depending on the county and how many offices. For example, Kiambu has 12. So in Kiambu we have 12 constituencies, therefore we have 12 offices that are within the Kiambu County. So that's what's happening currently. But when it comes now to rolling out, where we are now reaching out to the polling station, of course we shall use the index of population and also the index of distance when we are allocating the different kits, so that we are able to reach as many Kenyans as possible. And we have the kit, so it's a question of just hiring personnel and then training them and then making them go to the local markets and everywhere. That time we shall now look at population and also the index of distances as we allocate the kids. So generally, Kenyans can just visit any office. That's the beauty of it. And you register because really you are not restricted only to the constituency you come from. You know, Kitabo, people used to travel to their constituency where you want to be registered. And then you travel all the way. But this time, you can register anywhere. The only thing that you need to know when it comes to voting, you will vote where you registered. You have to travel to where you registered. Yeah, if you registered in a Starehe constituency and your registration your polling station where you registered is somewhere in Kakamega, Vihiga, or Nyahururu or Kwale, then you have to travel there during voting. You know, it's also good to explain that so that Kenyans do not turn out to register, to vote where they
didn't register.
Yeah, they didn't register. Just because the point of registration was Starehe and you registered in Kware, then we don't want you to turn out in Starehe. You said I registered here. You registered towards a particular polling station where you expected during the voting day then to go there. Yeah.
Okay. I remember a time when the currency of the country was being changed, and the then governor of the central bank himself was on TV. He was at barazas. He was every minute. In fact, we got tired of seeing him. We got tired of seeing him to the point that everybody took their money and changed it before the deadline.
Yes.
And the few who didn't change their money, in fact, Kenyans were asking them, where were you? We were told to change the money. And we all went and did it. My point is that he was regular, repetitive, and he was everywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody could say that they didn't know that Kenya's currency was changing and that you needed to hand yours in to the bank or whatever to get the new currency at a certain date.
Yeah.
He was all over the place. There were people talking about it. It was in the newspaper. It was on radio. It was on TV. Everywhere the man went, he was talking about it. So Kenyans knew that this needed to happen, even with this last-minute tendency behavior that we would have. Could the same thing be employed by IEBC? The same mode
Of
repetitiveness,
reminding. Yes, I think it. You are right on point that for something to work and really mobilize Kenyans, we need to be there, out there, and speaking to Kenyans. And like I've just come, I really thank Spice FM for allowing us to be here this morning. So it is important that we keep repeating, keep going out there and talking to Kenyans. But you also know sometimes it comes with costs. Yeah, because probably you may need to really be everywhere, but sometimes you are limited by funding, lack of enough finances. But that does not mean that we shall not exploit every opportunity that come our way. Every radio station that gives us an opportunity where we have money and we are doing some advert and all that. Right now, we are even employing voter educators at the constituency level. When we roll out the ECVR, the enhanced one, the mass voter registration, it shall be accompanied by voter educators who go to the market ahead of the voter registration clerks to really mobilize Kenyans so that they can vote. We are in that mood of really wanting to do that, to prepare for the as FM and other channels that are under the media house. So it's actually very important to keep speaking.
I want to look at availability of personnel of IEBC. So here's a question because even our listeners are saying they've gone to some centers to register as voters, but the numbers of personnel are there low. Some centers do not even have personnel. Is that a concern for the commission? Number two, there is also the fact that Kenyans, there is a trust deficit issue with IEBC because over the years, a lot has been said about IEBC. Even the formation of the commission, the current commission, IEBC, is something that was out there in the public glare on how it happened, and there is trust. The political class as well have spoken to that. How are you working to make Kenyans trust that IEBC will deliver? And how as well are you ensuring that even when Kenyans come to register, because they have to do that to exercise their democratic right, that they get in there is personnel to attend to them and do that job? How do you deal with those two issues?
Number one, I doubt whether there's anywhere we don't have personnel. Every office of IEBC has 2 officers. In the worst case scenario, 1 officer could be there because another one could be on leave, another one could be attending a meeting, but at any one point, there's an officer in charge in the registration center. And these are officers that are already gazetted by the commission as required by law as registration officers. So that's why we are saying, should Kenyan go and meet this no registration officer, we have really a way of...
Where do they go if they find there are no personnel? To who do they report to?
We have open lines, which probably I will share with the customer care, just to notify us there's a problem wherever they go and face any challenge. But I can tell you, from experience, and I have gone around, I have not met an office where there is no registration officer. Yeah, all registration officers work from 8 to 5.
One would imagine that if Anne Dorito showed up at a registration center, that everybody who was supposed to be working would be there.
But I'll go impromptu.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one would expect that you would, that if Anne shows up at a registration center, that even if somebody nicked out to get a cup of tea or something, that they heard that she was there, they would come back to their station. So the thing is that it was that I don't know if I'm.
But I've met them.
Okay.
I met them where I've had just an impromptu. I've met them registering Kenyans on the Q3, 4, 5. Really, I don't have a reason to doubt our officers. That the officers are in stations registering Kenyans.
It's a concern that is being raised by our listeners who are following up, and they're saying that has happened to them. Perhaps it's something that the commission needs to look into.
We are not doubting that. We are saying, should there be an issue like that, it is very important that Kenyans are raising it. Then we shall zero down probably to one station, where Kenyans are saying, probably I went there, and we know the circumstances. Because also, it's also good to realize that Kenyans also have this habit of appearing during lunch. This officer maybe need a break.
For lunch, okay.
Yeah, have gone for lunch. And I've seen that. I've been working in my office. People will just flow in, including lunch hour and oblivious that also maybe a Kenyan need the registration officer may have just gone for lunch. And that's why when we gazetted the time, we said it's from 8 to 1, then 2 to 5. Because this 1 hour, the Kenyan must have a break. The registration officer also must have a break. But I'm not doubting the Kenyans who are raising concern. We are only saying we can zero down to those specifics. Yeah.
There's a question on the
issue of trust. Yeah.
How is the commission working to regain that trust? Because Kenyans need to be sure that IEBC will deliver a free, credible election. But that, as it stands, kidogo, the commission has a lot of work to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do. And I want to say the first thing is that trust is earned. Trust is not something that you give somebody just because this person has just appeared. So we are working towards earning that trust. And one of it is setting our systems and making sure that our systems are there and they are working. 2 is to explain ourselves to Kenyans. Trust is lost because something was said, something was done, and probably the information was not given. For sure, sometimes trust is lost because there's a gap between the recipient of the information and where the information is coming from. So the gaps in between there are not filled. So one of the issues is to assure Kenyans and keep explaining ourselves what is it that we are doing. If we are not explaining ourselves, it means people will think there's something else we are doing behind the tent. So ours is to work transparently on the table and telling Kenyans, look, this is what we are doing at this particular time. And at this time, we are preparing like that. Like now, I've been explaining that there's no mystery in voter registration. You can now register anywhere, even if you are coming from a far flung and you happen to be in Nairobi for other businesses, just walk into a registration center and you'll be registered. That will save your money, you save your time. So explaining ourselves is one thing that we must continually do to rebuild trust. And of course also, we also require to ask Kenyans also to give us time, because the issue of IEBC and trust, public trust, is a historical issue. They don't even look at, like now, you hear Kenyans saying, we had nothing. We have just arrived. We have just arrived. We have just been recruited, and we have just starting. And then suddenly you say you don't trust us. You have not seen us what you have done. So it is more historical. But I have said, and I will repeat again, trust is also earned, and we must work towards assuring Kenyans and showing what we are doing and system and working independently and transparently and making sure that we respond to Kenyans, just like the issues we are raising. We must be responsive, and that's why I'm saying it's important to go into the depth of when complaints are raised, how do we address them? Because trust is really, really about also addressing issues that are coming on our way.
You've mentioned about explanations and that you need to explain to Kenyans over and over again. And one matter that needs explanation is why a different methodology. Different elections, what Kenyans have been doing is scanning their fingerprints and going into the election, and that's it. Right now, there's a new methodology. You can control, you can correct us, but that is the iris scanning.
Yes.
And with that now, if you look at the methodology that will be used in 2027, we have two different sets of methodology. There are those whose eyes, personally, my iris was never scanned. My iris was never scanned. As we go into that election, one would ask the question, who will use the fingerprints and who will use the iris? And how does that then bring together the aspect of a methodology that is understood by everybody and not methodology that confuses the voter? Why have the iris in 2027 elections?
One, it's good to know that technology keeps shifting, and also systems must keep shifting. And you must start from somewhere. First, the iris. Is it legal? The answer is yes. The Elections Act, Section 2, allows IEBC to capture as various biometrics, several of them, actually quite a number. But we chose the iris because in addition to the fingerprints, as a two-factor authentication, one can fail. And it has failed. You have seen it in the last general election, previous election. The default method of identification is actually fingerprints. Should fingerprint fail, then instead of becoming manual, you can resort to iris. So the assurance I'm giving Kenyans is that we still will use biometrics as the basic and the major voter identification method. But we are capturing iris, and we shall continue updating the iris register, including for the people like yourself whom we never captured your iris. We would require you at your convenience, you can update your data and we capture your iris. But the default method of identification is actually fingerprint.
Should this have been a conversation that Kenyans, the voters themselves, should have been involved for them to give the okay? Because remember, public participation is a requirement. Kenyans today are saying, fine, IEBC has decided to go with the iris method, but we have not been involved in this process. Why?
One, they were involved when the law was made, because it's in law. There was a lot of public participation on the Elections Act. Because if you tell us that everything now we do, and it's actually in law, then we come back. That's why when the law-making process is happening, there's a lot of public participation. It's even put in the newspapers by IEBC, later by Parliament. Kenyans are asked to bring in. And they accepted that law.
But Daktari, what I mean is, since the 2010 Constitution, there has been a specific methodology that has been used. Fine, IRIS is there in law as part of the biometrics that IEBC can use. But Kenyans have not used this specific methodology before. As IEBC introduces the new methodology into the system, isn't that important that Kenyans are, first of all, informed that we are updating our methodology?
Information we give.
That Kenyans sit and are explained as to why IEBC is updating this new methodology, because as we speak today, Kenyans are saying there is something sinister, and perhaps as much as maybe there is no something sinister,
there isn't something sinister.
Ought to explain to Kenyans why it sees it's fit or important for the update. Even in your phone, there is a software update that will happen over and over in time, but there is a notification that you're sent by the phone for you to press OK and say, fine, you can. But IEBC rolled it out without involving Kenyans, despite the fact that it's in the law. The update needs a notification, which did not happen.
One, I don't think you the way you are putting it, it's as if we are introducing a new methodology. There's no new methodology. We are introducing. Voter identification has been biometric using the fingerprints. We are not saying that we shall not use the fingerprint, we shall now use iris. No.
Both can work.
Both can work, but we come to iris when your fingerprints have failed. If you look at the last general election, you are going to see that there were so many cases around. We use voter register without the manual register. You know, those cases went up to the last day, up to 1 day to elections, about the manual register. And they were saying, let's bring the manual register for purposes of that person whose fingerprint will not respond to identification.
Okay.
That's why we need the manual register. So what we are saying, for election to be free and fair and credible, let's use everybody to be identified biometrically. That's exactly what we are saying. And to go towards that is to say, if your biometric 1 fails, which is fingerprint, then we can resort to biometric 2.
But in the case
that
where
is actually complementary.
So sure, but in the case where biometric 2 was not captured,
Yeah.
how then will you rely on that as an alternative method if biometric 1, the
Fails.
fingerprint, has failed? In this example, where Dennis Aseto went to register and his iris was not captured, in the event that biometric 1 fails, this is just Aseto. In the event that biometric 1 fails and biometric 2 was not captured, what would then happen?
Now, you see, this is a progressive realization of that vision where everybody is biometrically identified. And you have to start from somewhere. And because we are not coming up with the whole register anew, then we start with the one we are capturing now, so that in the long run, every other register, every other person will be updated.
Okay.
And that's a work in progress. And that will progressively eliminate any identification, any manual identification.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things that you mentioned here is obviously the numbers are low. Let's go back to that.
Yeah.
And looking across jurisdictions, whether you're looking in Kenya, whether you're looking in South Africa, Nigeria, whether you're looking in the UK, the US, India.
Yeah.
One of the major obstacles towards achieving desired numbers in voter registration is the lack of voter education.
Yes.
That you would be surprised that people are thinking, okay, a Tuesday in August, folks are going to say, I have to go and present this and I'm going to put my, mark somewhere. And that's about the size of it.
Yeah.
In terms of what they are doing this for, in terms of it being a right, in terms of it then also being a constitutional and state duty or responsibility, many people do not know. So the question is, how far is voter education riding hand in hand with this registration? 30%, high number of folks who do not register to vote in nations is because they are not educated on the voting process and the individuals who would be running for office that they would eventually vote on. 30%, big number. So where is the education of would-be voters playing in all of this?
Okay, thank you. But before I answer your question, let me revisit the issue of voter identification, because it's good to put in perspective. When you appear to vote in a registration center and your biometrics, the fingerprints, do not. Before we even go to check you manually or anything, we use alphanumeric. We type in your ID. And once we type in your ID, the data will come to show that you're actually in the kit, you're in the register, even before we refer to the manual register. That is another stopgap measure. And we even shall take your picture and put it in the kit to show that you came to vote. We're identifying you using the alphanumeric. We typed your ID, your data came up, and then after that we just say, hold your ID, we take your picture, and you put it in the kit so that we make sure that voter identification is also within the machine for purposes of verifiability and who voted and who did not. And then if now in the case of the people who have registered either the iris and the biometrics, the fingerprint, then we shall, before we go to even alphanumeric of searching, then we shall come to your iris and then identify you. I just wanted to clarify that. Now, coming to your question on voter education, I totally agree with you that voter education is such a critical process that must accompany any electoral process, including voter registration, all voting, all whatever we do, it must be accompanied by public education. What are we doing? The first thing IEBC have done, because voter education is such a large activity, it can also not be done by IEBC alone. Is collaborating with other civic education providers, and we are accrediting voter education providers. Most of them NGOs, CBOs, civil society groups, and people who are working in that space. We put out an advert and have accredited hundreds of them so that they can provide voter education out there. We give them information, the materials that they need to really walk out and give voter education out there. That is one of the ways. The second way is, and I think I mentioned, that we are also employing voter education providers, two coordinators, the people who now must provide voter education, two in every constituency. Later we shall go probably up to the ward level, where these voter education providers will actually go educating Kenyans from one church to another, one mosque to another, one market to another, one school to another, one institution to another, and they have a schedule and they are under the supervision of the permanent IEBC staff, and they give reports every other time. So we shall also go to the grassroots and employ that. We shall also really also come to media and try to explain processes, demonstrate, and all that. We, in the last few months, we have been able to go to several media stations to demonstrate even the voter registration itself, and really put the education out there. And we shall continue to do so. Maybe we are not doing to the maximum, but we really know that it is important to bring voter education to the people so that they are able to do that.
Okay.
But every Kenyan should really help us, any person in the institution, because it's a civic duty, also to really reach out to any other Kenyan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our time is up, but really quickly, for now, voter registration, is it suspended as you wait for the mini polls, the by-elections that happen on the 27th? Is that suspended and then it comes back, or is it still ongoing?
No, it is only suspended in those around 28 constituencies that we have the by-elections. We have 6 member of parliament by-elections.
Yes.
1 senate and quite a number of wards.
Yes.
One of the ward has gone without contest.
Yeah.
There were two, then one of it, somebody went to court and all that. So we have the 28 constituencies where voter registration is not happening because the register is reinvested. So
Sure.
we shall come back.
After that, we hear there will be a mass registration drive.
Mass registration after that, yeah.
All right. And what is the timeline that you're giving yourself here? We're talking about well into 2026 or into 2027, by which voter registration should have been completed.
It is 6 months.
6 months to the election,
to
isn't
the
it?
general election.
All right. So we're looking
then
at
voter registration will have been closed and completed and all that.
February 2027, essentially, is what we're looking at. But,
Yes.
it looks like it's a lot of time, Anne, but it's not.
It's not a lot of time,
Yeah.
because there's also a lot of work for the data processing of that register and all that. That's why we are asking Kenyans to come out as early as now, to register as voters.
The conversation continues, and we want to thank you for being here this morning. Dr. Anne Derito is a commissioner with the IEBC, talking about voter registration this morning. Necessary.
Probably you could have allowed me to call on Kenyans where the by-elections are to maintain peace and know that IBC is watching. Some of those acts of violence, we condemn them with all the possible force, because Kenyans have a right to vote, appear everywhere and anywhere they want to campaign. We hear there are people who think that there are people who should not campaign in certain areas. We want to say any Kenyan is allowed to campaign anywhere in this country, and then they must also come out and vote in those by-election areas. And let them, every Kenyan and every politician out there, maintain peace during these by-elections.
It's the last statement, but a strong one, that's for sure. And Derito, thank you so much for being here this morning. We look forward to the next. It's 3 minutes past 8. Good morning.
It is now 8 a.m. with ICEA Lion. It is time to plan ahead.
This is the Situation Room. The